Just to say, while we're waiting for Maureen to start, there are breakout rooms for people that want to talk to the speakers. If you have the latest version of Zoom, you should be able to see breakout rooms. So just saying, if you wanted to continue the dialogue with the authors, then that's available. Over to you, Maureen.
Oh, mute.
Yeah, sorry. Hi. Just to start off with, both Fion and I have been chatting as the previous speakers have given their very interesting talks, and we want to say that both of their talks actually resound with lots of the things that we've been doing in our group. So to introduce myself, so as Carl said, I've been working in the multimedia and virtual worlds arena for a good few years now, and I'd like to also bring into the talk Fion Gunn, who is the lead artist of our artist group. So I'll do a few slides and she will, and we'll go through the presentation like that. So as you can see, there are quite a few of us, myself, Fion, Nazia, Mei-Tsen, Terri and Cleon, and we'll talk more about them. So here they are, and this is our website, which contains a lot more information about our project, and we are updating it on an ongoing basis. So I'll just move that menu away. I don't know if you can see that's in the way there. So we all came together. Fion introduced us all, and we came together about 18 months ago, and we have been creating a virtual world. We're all interested in various themes which are common: water, ecology, landscape, narrative, and this comes out in all our works. But each of our spaces are actually autonomous, that we have a common hub through which the visitors enter. And all areas in our VR space are interconnected, and we are forming what we would call a multiverse. We are developing a common navigational framework which actually links all the different artist spaces, and we have various features and functions which we're developing. And we're developing toolkits so that we can enhance our working practice. So this is in the way here, so that we are designing a space for co-creation. So these are some of our images. This is the actual hub, and this is part of the participant, well, this is the participant space, which has been designed from by Fion. Shall I go on to the next slide, Fion, and you can do the next three?
Sure. All right, sorry,
Yeah.
Straight in. So I think one of the really interesting things that we haven't kind of mentioned so far is actually that the group has had in-depth conversations over the last year and a half, and we came to the idea of working together, looking through the lens of the labyrinth and the idea of the labyrinth. And why was that? It was about sort of we were all interested in the idea of choice and multiple choices and multiple pathways. And I guess one of the things that I think I felt a real connection with when Kenneth was speaking earlier was that idea of montage. I've always called myself a collage artist, but actually it's true to say I would be more involved in montage. And we have actually curated this project in a way which is where we dip in and out of different realities, and where we share certain common rules, but not many. So there's immense diversity, and it is, I guess, we were kind of keen to avoid something that was just kind of bland and sort of, you know, there are an awful lot of kind of virtual exhibitions out there and stuff like that that you go to see, and it's just basically a replication of what reality is like. And we didn't really want to do that, because we had our own imaginative realities, and how we stitch those together is really fascinating. So the image you saw of our hub, which again, we talked through the design of it, it's got portals, which are also portholes in a sense, which take you into each artist's world. You can always navigate back into the hub, but you don't have to. You can navigate directly, laterally through each of the artist spaces. And And so we discussed a lot about the assets that we were using and what kind of navigation we wanted. And sometimes we didn't want the same kind of navigation. And sound. So we've all got different sounds. And so it would be a very diverse and very rich experience for somebody who would visit. Sorry, Maureen, do you want to go to the next slide? Sorry, that's just us chatting, because we have these in-depth conversations every week, and we've been actually meeting sometimes for like 3-4 hours discussing things. And we've started to invite other people to join us who are sort of contributing ideas or technical advice and stuff to the project, because we feel in this way we can sort of be expansive. We don't want to be cliquey and just kind of do things with our own little group. We want to expand and listen to those diverse voices, because we really want to avoid silos. We don't want to be going down that road. Sorry, next slide, Maureen. So I guess one of the big struggles that we face as a small and sort of highly motivated group with really interesting partners is that we were very grateful for a grant from Arts Council England to develop this MVP, which we're working on at the moment, and which will be kind of out there in the next couple of weeks. So please do sort of visit our website to kind of see where we're at with that. But our big problem is identifying partners who've got capacity in terms of, we know that we need a budget of, 200,000 or 250,000 euros or pounds to move this to the next level, to sort of do something on a bigger scale. And we can't just work with people who can raise 20 grand or whatever, because that's not going to take us very much further. So I would say we do have to spend a lot of time, regretfully, trying to identify the best partners that, we're happy to write applications, and this is what we do, but it is finding the right partners to work with who've got a kind of dynamic rather than a very staid institutional approach. So we're also very interested in transdisciplinarity. Hence, we've got quite a few advisors who are scientists, who are, coming from radically different backgrounds from ours. And even amongst the artist group, we have very radically different backgrounds and professional pasts. In that way, the sort of community aspect, because co-creation is such a sort of important element of the experience of art, I believe. So if you go to the most successful museums in the world, if you go into the sort of the V&A or the BM or wherever, you'll get, troops of school kids visiting and sort of being able to engage in a very kind of friendly, welcoming way with the exhibits and make sense of them. And of course, they all visit the shop on the way out afterwards, and you can take home your little bit of the British Museum. And we'd like to take that a step further, where people can actually make something. That it might just be you create a selfie within our environment and play around with the scale, or you might end up sort of playing hide and seek in the participant space with friends, sort of hiding behind trees or laying trails. So we're kind of investigating a lot of this at the moment and starting the kind of testing process, where we're working with focus groups, and we've actually got an age range which goes from 4 to 90. So we really are looking at sort of accessibility and reaching out to people who might otherwise be excluded from these kinds of projects.
Next one.
Still me. Right, here's the hub. And yeah, so this is the kind of approach from above. Actually, the viewers can approach from underneath and go up a sort of elevator, virtual elevator into the space. And, we created this using various different techniques. I'm the only one in the group who's got a headset, regretfully, although Terry's got one now, but I hope other people will go and buy them as well, because actually Tiltbrush has been amazingly accessible as software. And for me, I trained as a sculptor before making lots of 2D and mixed media work. So it felt like a very natural progression to use Tiltbrush and have that kind of sculptural, theatrical feel. And I think the struggles technically, because I only started working with new technologies, my first introduction was in 2018. And I think, you know, struggling with the sizes of files, because my tendency I'm in there, I'm creating a forest. So I create a forest of like 200 trees. They're all individual, differentiated. And then I go to save it and it won't save because it's just too big a file. Here's the inside of the hub. So my challenge was then I had to axe quite a lot of the virtual forest, which I felt sort of environmentally strange about. So, but whittling down. So lots of kind of really basic lessons to learn. And it has been a learning process for all of us in the group. And we've all had to combine and exchange assets and exchange, you know, tech advice. And thankfully, Maureen was able to do that. Maureen, on you go.
Okay, so what you can see here is inside the hub, we've got portals into a range of different artist spaces. Our team actually, it has expanded. Well, we have an expanded network that is supporting our team. So we've been working with a group of artists, curators and anthropologists and cultural project manager in Elfsina in Greece. That's the area near Athens which requires regeneration. And also some Sunil from Southampton, Winchester, Thomas from France and Singapore, and Jen, who is an engagement officer to do with the Beaver Project, which is a part of my artist space, to do with regeneration of land to combat rising sea levels. And Verite, art consultant, Museum of Childhood, and the Tree Easy tree planting in Ireland, and Alan Hudson, who I've worked with before, and he has invented various avatar virtual worlds over the years. So to go back to the look and feel of where we are. So this particular slide shows on the right hand side we've got Nazia's art space, and you know you're approaching Nazia's art space, which is to do with planting wheat fields within urban spaces. She is an architect and system designer by practice. And then we have on the left hand side we have a beaver as part of my project, my space. Fion, would you want to continue?
Yeah, okay. And I think it's interesting that, for example, going back to that uncanny link as well, that Nazia, who designed that wheat field space, her title for it is displacement. So I think all of us wanted to have in our spaces that you know, sensation of, oh my goodness, what is this place? And that constant surprise without it being scary, obviously. And so we're working on, you know, the sort of very basic points of it at the moment. And Cleon has to be our interpreter, if you like, because he's the one who is developing it for us and uploading everything onto Unity. And so we have these discussions and we're working out at the moment what the best ways of traveling between the worlds are. And we've come up with this idea of having bubbles. So you get a bubble with the artist's asset or icon, or which actually reflects the sort of the idea of gaming as you get in old-fashioned games like Monopoly and stuff. That, you know, the viewer can see these bubbles, click on the icon and be transported to that artist space. Next slide, Maureen. And so this is Maureen's space. Actually, you should talk about that, Maureen.
Yes,
go on.
Yes, sorry, I did have some child screaming in the background that I put on mute for a minute.
Atmospheric. That was atmospheric. Yeah. Uncanny.
Yes, we have a large blended family here. Okay, so this Cleon and I worked on this. I designed something along these lines, and Cleon's helped to build this in Unity. It's actually based on an earlier project I did called On the Beach in Second Life many years ago, but it's a further development of that. And if you have a look, I'm just moving my cursor, I don't know if you can see that, but in the far distance, we have some drawings, tangible drawings, which are about to be projected onto the cliffs. So we have a sort of cave painting or cliff wall painting bringing the tangible into the digital. We have some various different elements within the beach, and this is being developed based on a real beach, and looking at the narratives of migration, loss, trauma, and reintegration. So those are the themes of the narrative. Fion.
Yeah, and so this is my space, and so I've created a sort of like a really crazy roller coaster, which has a point of entry, 4 different choices of coils. So you can have a very vertiginous experience of traveling through the space. You can go underwater in the space. You can go through rocks. It's quite dramatic, and it has a sort of clapping percussive soundtrack, which stops when you see the magic carpet. And once you get to a magic carpet, there are various things that the viewer can access. One is, for example, a retelling of an old story from ancient Ireland. Another is a scroll unfolds, and it's actually Cavafy's poem called Ithaca. And you go into the central island, which is like a planet, which is filled with cellular shapes. And there you see the bubbles of other artists floating about as well.
Sorry.
And now Mei-Tsen space, which is, sorry, over to you, Maureen.
Yeah, sorry, I touched it by mistake.
That's all right.
So this is Mei-Tsen's space full of jellyfish. There are actually 3 or 4 different spaces, and you can transport yourself through the different spaces, which have got different color opportunities, if you like, or different colorways. Mei-Tsen is very interested in the ecology of the sea and marine conservation, so that permeates some of her ideas. This one is from Terri, and Terri is very interested in the cycle of life. And these are, I mean, if you saw the close-ups, you'd see different fish consuming each other in the kind of food chain, marine food chain. So here we have Nazia, who is the architect and systems designer and artist. And as we said, that she is developing wheat fields within an urban environment. She works in the States at the moment, she's actually posted to Houston. So we have to always do our online meetings at 5 o'clock when she can come online. So we do have and we have people in Paris and so on. So we have to, we're working in a multi-disciplinary and multi-global, if you like, team. Fion, over to you.
And so here is that participant space. It's got 85 individual trees, and then I've made other sort of stands of different kinds of trees, because I've been reading a lot about how trees grow in the forest and how they grow in family groups. And so I've made family groups of other kinds of trees like silver birch or ash or whatever, which will then be added into some of the emptier spaces here. And this will also be replicated. So the space will expand, the virtual space will expand, because I really loved the idea of, a participant arrives in this very sort of monochromatic white landscape with white trees, and they're lost and they don't know where to go. And actually I was getting lost when I was making it. I had to put sort of symbols up over the trees so that I could find my way back to the ones I was working on.
So Fion, if I can just intersect, the idea here would be, just to recount on that, is that the participants go through the whole of the virtual world and they collect digital collectibles, which they can then use in this space to create their own montage. Talking Ken, you were talking earlier on about the uncanny of the montage. So this will be a place where they'll be able to create their own, and the idea is that they'll be able to take a 2D or 3D takeaway at the end of their visit. So they will be able to, go to the shop and actually have something to take away with them.
Just to say, you've got about a minute to sum up if you can do that.
Okay, so we've got various technical challenges. We're looking for somebody with C# to help us with a few things, and we're developing relationships, as Fion was discussing earlier on. And these are our contact details, so please do get in touch, and we'd be very happy to have a conversation with you now or later to see if you'd like to collaborate or contribute.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. That was fantastic. And as I mentioned, there is a breakout room for everyone to continue the dialogue. But we